What's up, curious cats? So how did curiosity get me this time? Well, I was going through my local Walmart and I noticed that they now have this huge dedicated ramen section. And I love ramen. Pretty much everybody does. But I noticed that there were flavors from companies that I didn't even know were making ramen. Like Tapatío, which is just the hot sauce you get at Mexican restaurants. Hot Ones even has their own noodles, and this one that quite frankly looks cheap as hell. Anyways, I wanted to taste them all so that you don't have to, specifically the spicy ones. And I'm gonna rank them all based on these 3 criterias to see which one of these are gonna make it to my top 3. So there's 40 varieties to get through here. Let's do some shit. First up, we have Maruchan with their hot and spicy chicken. In terms of the spice level, it's pretty much non-existent for me. I would say it's a 1 out of 10. Like, I feel a little tingle in the back of my tongue, but that's about it. If you're British, it might be closer to a 4 since your benchmark is probably that of a boiled potato. As far as flavoring goes, I don't really taste that much of any sort of chicken in the broth. I would say you're probably more gonna be tasting like the chili powder. But the flavor is a little bit nostalgic for me because I remember the first time I had a Maruchan cup ramen. So I would say flavoring wise, we're probably looking at about a 4. And in terms of noodle texture, it does have a little snap to it, which is nice. Not as much chew as I would like. I would say the noodles are probably about a 4. Now we have the Maruchan hot and spicy beef version. Oddly enough, in terms of the spice, I barely taste it at all compared to the chicken. So I would have to give this a 0.5 in terms of the spice level. In terms of the flavor is slightly different from the chicken. It overall just has that same kind of processed taste. So, and because it's not as spicy, I'd say this is probably about a 3. Maruchan pretty much uses the exact same noodles across the cup, so that's gonna be a 4. And now the Maruchan hot and spicy shrimp flavor. Similar as the beef, I barely feel the tingle in my tongue. It's just slightly there. So I'm gonna give the spice level a 0.5. Flavor, I'm gonna give it 2 because I barely taste any sort of shrimp or any sort of seafood flavor. And really, it just tastes salty. That's about it. Still the same noodles, gonna give it a 4. Now for the Maruchan lime chili flavor with shrimp. And when they say with shrimp, they actually mean with shrimp. Okay, very chewy. Kind of has some sort of shrimp flavor. The spice level is literally non-existent. I'm gonna have to give it a 0. I don't taste any sort of chili. The broth has a hint of lime flavor. It doesn't really last very long. Definitely don't taste that chili still. About a 3. And of course, a 4 for the noodles. Editor Jason here. So it's occurred to me that I never told you what my spice tolerance level is. Well, it's above average, and that's probably because my dad gave me a clove of garlic when I was a kid and told me it tasted like candy. Anyways, here is a chart of the modifiers you need to add to my ratings to determine how spicy this ramen is for you. With that out of the way, let's get back to the video. The last one from Maruchan is this Yakisoba version, which is no soup, and this is their spicy chicken flavor. Immediately off the bat, I can actually smell some sort of spice coming from this, so let's give it a taste. Okay, right off the bat, I can taste spice in here. I'd have to say it's like maybe about like a 3 to a 3.5. I'll give it 3.5. It's actually really, really good. As far as the flavoring goes, much more savory, really hits a good punch. I'd have to say I'd give it about a 5. The noodles are also very different than the cup versions. This has more chew to it versus a snap. I do like it. I'm gonna also give it about a 5. Now we're moving to the Nissin cup noodle brand, and this is part of their gourmet soup line. This is the Japanese Miso. It apparently has chili infused noodles and even little, what looks to be like meat pieces in here. So let's try the meat real quick. All right, kind of breaks pretty well. Not much flavor though. I feel like that's pork. I'll have to double check. On the packaging, they gave this a 3 out of 6 chili peppers in terms of spice. As far as the chili infused noodles, I don't really taste it. There's a very, very slight tingle. So I would give this a 0.5 for spice. It's got a nice pleasant flavor. I would actually give it probably about a 4.5. As far as the noodle quality, I would say there's not much of a snap, but there is a little bit of a chew, kind of right in between. I would give the noodles a 4.5. Next up, we now have the Sichuan garlic chicken variety, and it still has some of these meat chunks in here. Let's try it. All right, that kind of tastes like chicken. Let's taste the noodles. All right, because this is Sichuan, we do have kind of a numbing effect in terms of the spice level, and I do feel it a little bit on the roof of my mouth, so I give the spice level a 1. Now in terms of the flavor is quite nice. It's definitely a thicker broth compared to Maruchan. Not a lot of spice though that's hitting you unless you take in one of the chili flakes, but this is a good broth. I would give the flavor a 5. Now we have the Korean Gochujang beef version, and it's got meat chunks in it, so let's try that. You know, I think none of this is actually meat. It's probably just like a soy product, and it doesn't really taste like beef. It just kind of gives you a chewy texture. This cup is touting that it's 1 chili pepper hotter than the previous 2, so we're at 4 out of 6. Chili-infused noodles, still, I honestly don't have high hopes for it. All right, even with a higher chili rating, I literally taste nothing. There's no tingle, there's no numbness. This is a 0 on the spice level. Oh, come on! The broth in this one is actually quite bland, almost has a watery flavor taste to it, so I'm gonna have to give this about a 2.5. Next up, we have the Nissin stir-fry varieties. This is the sweet chili flavor, coming in at 1 chili pepper out of 6. If any of the other ratings are to go by, this is probably not gonna be spicy at all. Oddly enough, I can detect some sort of spice in here. It's very, very minuscule, so I'm gonna give it a 0.25. As far as flavoring goes, it's pretty much just like your sweet chili stir-fry sauce you would probably get at some sort of fast food restaurant. And it tastes okay. I'm gonna give this about a 3. The last of the Nissin stir-fries is this fiery Korean chicken flavor. This thing is literally red, coming in at 5 chili peppers out of 6. Let's hope it doesn't disappoint. All right, there's definitely spice in there, and it's a specific type of pepper that kind of causes my cheeks over here to slightly feel like they want to sweat, kind of opening up the pores. It's not crazy by any means, like I could eat this perfectly fine. I would say the spice level for this is a nice, comfortable 5. Flavor-wise, it's actually quite good. I would also give it a 5. And lastly, the noodle texture across these cups are all the same, 4.5. Now to the Tapatío ramens. This is the original flavor. There's a really good smell coming off of it, and I'm really excited to try this because I've just never tried their brand of noodles before. So here we go. All right, spice level wise, I definitely feel it dancing around on my tongue. It's very pleasant. I would say I'd give this a 4. The flavor is tomato based, that's what I'm tasting. I wouldn't be surprised if it is essentially just their bottled hot sauce made into a soup form. It's actually very flavorful and tasty. I would give this a 5.5. The noodle texture is a little chewy, just a little bit. It's got some spring to it. It's actually quite good. Definitely one of the better noodles I've had so far. I would give this also a 5.5. Next up, we have the artificial chicken flavor. Spice level is the same as the previous one, giving it a 4. Flavor-wise, it's very similar to the original. It's got that tomato kind of taste. Not sure if I taste any sort of that artificial chicken flavor, so because of the marketing aspects, I'm gonna give this a 4. Next up, we have the birria flavor, which is essentially a Mexican meat stew. This is the beef version, and right off the bat, I can smell it. So let's get to tasting. Spice level wise, it's a bit subtle. It kind of just tickles you and then it leaves. So I'm gonna give this about a 2.5. It really doesn't burn at all. Flavor-wise, this definitely gives off that meat stew vibe. I wanna say there's a little sourness in there, maybe like vinegar or something like that. It's very tasty. I'm gonna give this a 5.75. Next, we have the Carne Asada with lime, and I can definitely smell the lime. So I can barely taste the spice, and it's probably because the lime flavoring is canceling it out. I'm gonna give it a 0.25. Flavor-wise, I've never had carne asada before, but if I had to guess based on the ingredients, it would probably taste something like this. As far as it being a noodle, it's actually quite pleasant. I'm gonna give it a 4.5. And the last one from Tapatío is their chili lime shrimp. Definitely can smell that lime. Let's see if we can taste the shrimp. The spice level is just like the one before with the lime canceling it out, so I'm gonna give it 0.25. As far as the shrimp, I can taste like a little bit of something seafoody in there, not a lot. I'm gonna have to give the flavor a 4. Next up, we have the Sriracha Ramen noodles. This is the original flavor. It's made by a company called Choi. Never heard of them before, but we're all familiar with Sriracha, so let's have a taste. You can definitely taste the Sriracha and get all the same feelings. It is in a soupy form, so it feels a little bit different, but I would say the spice level is at a nice, comfortable 4.5. The broth is basically soupified Sriracha. I'm gonna give the flavor about a 4. The noodles have a bounce and a chew to it. It doesn't really snap. Pretty pleasant. I would give this about a 5. And the last one here from Sriracha is the chicken flavor. The spice is there, but it's not as intense as the original one, so I'm gonna have to give the spice level about a 2.5. Flavor-wise, I can still taste that Sriracha, but it's not as intense as the original one. And the chicken flavor, there might be just a hint of it, but it's really not forward. So I would say flavor-wise, about a 3.5.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? For First We Feast, I'm Sean Evans, and you're watching Hot Ones. It's the show with hot questions and even hotter wings. And today we're joined by Jason.
I'm pretty excited to try the ramens from Hot Ones. This is made by a company called Asada. This is their sweet chili flavor. They also have some of these meat bits in here, so let's try that one first. Essentially kind of artificial meat. Let's try the noodles. What I like about the Hot Ones is this is not powder based. They had some powder, but they also had like a liquid packet, and we can see the oils kind of being on the surface of the water. Pretty much no spice that I can detect, and this is considered their mild flavor. I'm gonna have to give this essentially a 0.
You had one, Joe. Just the one?
Same sweet chili flavor as the previous one. I would say it's actually a little bit more subtle. So flavor-wise, I would have to say about a 3. The noodles are completely different from all the ones we've tested so far. They're long, they're not wavy. They have a little snap to it, not a lot of chew, but texture-wise, pretty good. I'm also gonna give it about a 5. Now, Hot Ones, they do include an additional pack here, which is just chili oil. It's a bonus, you don't have to add it in. I'm gonna add it just to see what it tastes like, but it's not going to affect the ranking. I want the rankings to be on the original flavor itself. I would say added just a little bit of spice. I can't really taste it. Probably a 0.25 if I was to rank it. Yeah, pretty much doesn't really add too much heat. Not sure why they say add it if you dare. Next up is the garlic chili. This is their medium heat. The broth is definitely more red than the sweet chili, so let's hope it brings the heat. I'm kind of legitimately disappointed. There's really not much heat coming off of here. I feel like a little slight numbness in the tongue, so if anything, I'd give it a 1. Flavor-wise, not too much to write home about. It is good, but just doesn't seem to be doing a whole lot. I'd give it about a 4. Now let's see what happens if we add the bonus heat packet, just in case if it's different than all the other ones. I wonder what it tastes like on its own. There is spice from it. It's kind of got a weird sour-y taste to it. I'm not exactly sure how that would mix well with the ramen. Yeah, just adds like a little spice to it. It doesn't blow your socks off. And the last one from Hot Ones is their smoky chili. It's got the big, huge pepper that says, "This is really hot." I don't know. Let's find out. I don't know. It might be there. I guess about a 1. I can taste a little sourness in the broth. The flavoring's a little thin. I'd give this about a 3.5. And the noodle texture, exact same thing. It's a 5. I'm not even gonna bother adding this hot sauce packet because it's not gonna do anything.
Come on, Sean. It's supposed to be spicy.
Hey, it's halftime, folks. Let's take a look at our current standings. Surprisingly, Tapatío is coming in at 1st and 3rd place. Let's see if they can hold on to it in the second half. Moving on to the Nongshim Hot and Spicy Ramen Bowls. This is their chicken flavor at a 1 chili pepper out of 6. Not sure why they do 6, why not 5? But anyways, let's see how it compares to the Maruchan's spicy chicken flavor. Even though it had a chili packet, I detect no spice, gonna give it a 0. Flavor-wise, there is a sour note. Doesn't really taste all that interesting to me. I have to say the flavor is about a 2. The noodle texture is a little weird. It has a chew to it, but it breaks in a brittle way when you're chewing it in your mouth. I don't think it's the best noodles I've ever had. I'm gonna give this a 2. Next, we have the shrimp flavor, also ranked at 1 chili pepper out of 6. Same thing, I can't taste any sort of spice. Gonna give it a 0. Flavor is a little bit better than the chicken version. I'm gonna give this a 3. And the noodles, same as before, I'm gonna give it a 2. Moving on to Nissin's Firewok series of ramens. This is their sizzling rich pork flavor. It's got a rating of 4 chilies out of 6. The chili packet was blood red. There's a really good smell coming from here, so let's see how much spice there is. I'm detecting a little numbness on my tongue. It's nothing crazy, I could eat this all day long. I would give the spice about a 2.5. The flavor coming from this is kind of like a lo mein flavor. It's really good. I would give this a 5. And the noodles also have this nice bounce in a chew. I will also give the noodle texture a 5. Next up, we have the Firewok Molten Chili Chicken, rated at 6 chilies out of 6. It's got a great smell. Let's give it a taste. Definitely can taste the spice. I'm gonna give this a 5. Flavor-wise, it's not too bad, but I do prefer the pork flavor from before. I'm gonna give this a 4.25. Now we have the Firewok Volcanic Mongolian beef flavor, rated at 6 chili peppers out of 6. It even has literal chili peppers in the seasoning packet. Oh yeah, you can definitely taste the chili oil. It's not crazy. I'm gonna give this a 5. Flavor-wise, I still go back to that pork flavor. This one is basically savory, but you really get that chili oil flavor. I wouldn't say it's like the best balance. I'm gonna give it a 4. And finally, in the cup bowl category, we have Nongshim coming in with their hot and spicy flavor. So it's pretty vague, but let's see how spicy it is. Definitely can taste a blend of different peppers, I feel like. It's very comfortable in terms of its spice for me, so I'm gonna give the spice level a 5. In terms of flavor, with Korean ramen, it's not just pure spice. There's other things that kind of play into it that gives it a very full flavor profile. I'm gonna give the flavor on this one a 5.5. The noodle is thin, has that brittle break texture to it. However, it's not as bad as the other one that had that brittle break texture. This one picks up the soup quite well. I would give this an overall 3.5. All right, and the final bowl cup ramen is Nongshim's Spicy Chicken flavor. It's got a good smell to it, and it does have those artificial meat pieces. And the artificial meat doesn't have any distinct flavor of its own, maybe just like a hint of mushroom or something. Otherwise, its sole job is just to soak up the broth, so you get like an explosion of broth if you chew into it. Spice-wise, I can taste some sort of tingle, but it disappears right away. I'm gonna give this basically a 0.5. The flavor of the broth is rather thin. I don't really necessarily taste a lot of chicken in here. I'm gonna have to give this about a 3. Finally, moving into our packaged category, we are starting off with the hotter and spicier chili ramen express by Chef Wu. Apparently this is made in the United States. The broth does not have a lot of color to it, so let's see about the flavor. I taste the chili, it's nothing crazy. I would give the spice a 2. So this is touted as a vegetarian ramen, and for whatever reason, I tasted celery the moment I sipped the broth. It's not bad, essentially like a vegetable stock. I would give the flavor about a 3.5. The noodles have a slippery texture, it's got a chew, it breaks very easily. It's not a terribly bad noodle, I would give it about a 4. Next up, we have Maruchan Gold, which I believe is just their premium package. I've never seen this before. This is their spicy miso flavor. Right off the bat, I can smell so much umami just coming out of this bowl. All right, it's not that spicy. I taste a little bit of chili oil. I would give this a 0.75 in spice, but my gosh, the flavor. This broth is thick, and the miso flavor coming off of it, you can definitely taste it. I wanna say it's like a red miso. You still get a little bit of that chili oil flavor. So much umami in here, it's a 6.5. The noodles are also really good. This is kind of like a long noodle. It doesn't have that curliness. It's got a really awesome chew and it holds on to that soup really well. I'm also giving the noodles a 6.5. This is Nongshim's Neoguri ramen, which is a spicy seafood udon style ramen. This ramen holds a dear place in my heart as this is the very first ramen I ever tasted. This spice is like a warm hug. It doesn't sting you, it just is there, and it's very tasty. I would give this a 5.75. The broth is also very flavorful. You definitely get that seafood flavor because there's some seaweed and kelp in here, but you also get like hints of shellfish as well. The broth is also decently thick. I would give this a 6.25. The noodles are supposed to be udon style, but it's instant ramen, so it's not gonna be super thick and of course not fresh. But that being said, there's a really good chew to it and it just soaks up that broth so well so you get all the flavor. I would give the noodles a 7. Nongshim's SHIN Ramen. This is an instant classic. SHIN literally means spicy. And if you know your international noodles and your friend says, hey, I want some spicy ramen, this is probably the first one you will have them try. This spice is a sleeper. It lures you into that false sense of confidence, and then as you keep going, it gets a little bit more spicy. I'm giving this a 6.75. The broth will not only contain all that spicy flavor, but you'll get that mushroom umami to go with it. It's a thinner broth, very, very tasty, also a 6.75. The noodles are thin, but they have a really good chew and they break in the most satisfying way. They also carry a lot of that soup with you, so you get all the flavor as you're eating this ramen. The noodles here, a solid 7. SHIN Ramen Black with beef bone broth is what you get when you want to elevate a classic. This is part of their premium line, and it smells premium. Right off the bat that you'll notice is it's not as spicy as the original SHIN Ramen. I would give this about a 4. The broth is just kicked up a whole nother level. You still get a bit of that spiciness, that mushroom base, but then they have this beef bone broth of which I feel like I'm tasting bone marrow. That's kind of the flavor that I'm associating with. And then there's garlic in there as well. When you add this all together, it's a very tasty, thick broth. I'm giving it a 7.25. And because those noodles carry up the soup so well, it's also slippery, very satisfying to chew, still a 7. Nongshim continues to elevate their flavors with SHIN Gold. This is with chicken broth. Right off the bat, this is spicier than SHIN Black, but I wouldn't say it's spicier than the original SHIN Ramen, so I'm gonna give this a 6.25. Out of all the chicken ramens that I've tasted, this one actually has chicken broth flavor. Then you add in that spice, oh, it's really good. I'm gonna give this a 7.5. Honestly, this broth makes me think like if Uncle Roger asked his mother, Ma, I sick, I want some Campbell chicken noodle soup. Roger, you idiot. Mama give you SHIN Gold ramen noodle soup. That's how I'd imagine it. And it's the same noodles, the soup is literally stuck to it. A nice solid 7. Next up we have Nongshim's kimchi flavored seasoned with real kimchi. And they do have some kimchi bits in here. It does taste like kimchi, a little bit more on the vinegar side, but I love kimchi. Here we go. Spice-wise, you definitely taste that spiciness from kimchi, but it's not crazy by any means. I would give this about a 3. The flavor of the broth is pure kimchi stew, kind of like a kimchi jjigae. I would say it is a little bit on the sour side, but not bad at all. I would give this a 6. And the noodles are very much like the SHIN Ramen, takes up the broth very well, a solid 7. Moving to our packaged stir-fry series, this is the Firewok by Nissin, and it is their torched teriyaki chicken flavor coming in at 4 chili peppers out of 6. Spice level wise, this is about a 1.5. The spice that I'm tasting is actually just the tingleness you get from ginger. I can actually smell the ginger coming from this. It's not that spicy at all. Flavor wise, I would say it's okay. It doesn't really resemble any teriyaki chicken that I have had. I'm gonna give this about a 3.5. Noodles are chewy, and they do hold on to that seasoning quite well, so I would give this about a 5. Next Firewok flavor is their Screaming Sichuan beef flavor. This is 5 chili peppers out of 6. I can smell that Sichuan black peppercorn smell, so let's see if it kicks. Ooh. Oh, okay. Ooh, I'm hiccuping now. I'm okay. So this kicks, definitely. I can taste that Sichuan black, oh my God. There's a lot of saliva being produced right now. The spice I feel is gonna build up the more you eat this in a good way. I'm gonna give this a 6.75. In terms of beef flavor, it's that processed beef soup type flavor, so it is there. I'd give the flavor a 6. Noodle-wise, same as before, a 5. This is Nongshim's SHIN Ramen stir-fried version beef flavor. It is blood red. We have some fake meat chunks here. Yeah, just meat texture, if you will. I can literally smell the spice coming through the steam, so let's see if this gets me too. Spice is definitely there. It's the same kind of peppers again that will make my cheeks start to sweat a little bit. It'll definitely get spicier the more you continue to eat it. I'm gonna give this a 6.5. Flavor-wise, it feels like it's just the stir-fried version of the SHIN Red package. I'm gonna give this a 6.5. And the noodles are very premium compared to all the other packages. It just literally latches onto the sauce and doesn't let go, so you get all that flavor, a solid 7. All right, guys, this is it. Walmart does carry Samyang's Buldak artificial chicken flavor. This is the infamous or famous fire noodle challenge that we've seen on YouTube for quite a while now. You can definitely smell the spice coming from this thing. I feel like I'm already sweating just smelling the peppers from here. Definitely spicy. This is the type of spice that makes the top of my head start to get warm, not my cheeks. You feel it in your stomach and it slowly warms you up. It's good, I like it. Can I handle it? Absolutely. I'm gonna give this a 7. Flavor-wise, I love that it's not just pepper flavor and that's all you get. There's like a sweetness in there somewhere. It does balance out quite well. I'm gonna give this flavor about a 6.5. The noodles are of a thicker variety. It has a really good chew to it. I wouldn't say it grabs onto the sauce as much as the Nongshim SHIN Ramen. So I feel like if you got that ability where it really just takes up all the sauce and it doesn't let go, it would be even better. But that being said, it's not a bad noodle, a 6.5. Buldak has other flavors as well. This is their artificial chicken with habanero and lime flavoring. I can't smell the lime, but I do smell some sort of like freshness herb, almost like a cilantro smell. Spice-wise, it seems a little bit less than the original Buldak, but it has that effect where it's gonna get spicier as you eat it. Overall, I would say it's a 6.75. Flavor-wise, you can taste that original Buldak, but you also get that freshness from the lime, but also that cilantro taste again. I feel like I'm tasting a freshness of herb, but then you add that sweetness to it. So when you combine all three flavors, this is actually not that bad. I really like it. I would give the flavoring a 7. The noodles are exactly the same as before, a 6.5. The last Buldak flavor that my Walmart has is their artificial chicken flavor with Carbonara. I can smell that cheesy powderness. It is a little creamy, and the noodles are different. Right off the bat, you won't taste the spice, you'll taste that cheese, but the spice does kind of tingle in there a little bit later, and it's of course very reminiscent of the Buldak flavor. But as far as burn-wise, not a lot. I'm gonna give this about a 3. Flavor-wise, I know it's blasphemy because it's not real cheese, but it's got that cheesy flavor. You can kind of smell that little bacon bit, and of course you add the spice into it. It's just a spicy cheese, and it tastes delicious. I'm gonna give this a 7.25. The noodles I noticed are different. They are thicker than the other Buldak noodles. They also have a really wonderful chew. They seem to grab up that sauce quite well. I'm gonna give this a 7. 40 ramens up, 40 ramens down. These are my top 3 winners across all the categories with a possible score out of 30, and they are... Now, if you're just looking for the most spice, then these are the top 3 winners based on a possible score of 10. If spice is not your main concern and you just want good flavor, then these are your top 3 winners with also a possible score out of 10. If you are looking for the best bang for your buck, there was one ramen that came in first place across all 3 categories, including the best overall when you take into account its price to how it performed. And that ramen is... Honestly, for 28 cents, it does a pretty good job, and you can easily elevate this ramen by adding an egg into it, some chashu pork if you know how to make it, or even just using tongarashi spice, giving you more heat as well as more flavor to the broth. There are some honorable mentions that I feel you should know about, mainly from Tapatío and the Maruchan Gold. These did not score very high because there was basically not a lot of spice in there, but when it came to the flavor and the noodles, they surprised me. I feel like you should give it a try, even if you're not looking for spice, you just want some good noodles. My biggest disappointment, and it shows in my graph because it ranked very low when it came to its price to performance ratio, are the hot one ramens. They just weren't hot, and that's why they scored so low, and they were also very expensive for how much you had to pay to get that tiny little cup. All the SHIN Gold and Black Premium ramens cost approximately the same, and they delivered much more. So hot ones, back to the drawing board. Now, if you made it to the end of this video, you might be wondering, what happened to that pot earlier? All right. 40 spicy ramens condensed into this tiny little bowl. Let's see what it tastes like. I'm gonna try to get every noodle I can into one bite. Yeah, don't do this. Just stick with the individual package. Subscribe to the channel and see what kind of shit I get into next time.